Alright guys, every negative thing I have mentioned about Jianxin, completely disregard it. After pulling her as my first 5-star and spending hours on this game using her, she has opened my eyes and I am seriously in love with this character. She has a massive sleeper build and I'm gonna run through the value Jianxin truly holds. Just before that, I wanted to mention my channel has reached 1000 subscribers and I am truly grateful for any of you that have subscribed. Really means the world, and if you haven't, maybe consider it. I post a ton of WutheringWaves videos and would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Also, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Do it! Okay, Jianxin truly embodies the jack of all trades that encompasses a ton of things in her kit, which allows her to literally play any position in your team. Ranging from massive crowd control, providing shields and heals to the team, inflicts good damage to enemies, has a full counter and decent physics. Yeah boy. Now the argument of Jianxin being able to provide a lot through her kit yet not being dominant in a specific field isn't fair to really say. When you compare someone like Calcharo to Jianxin, Calcharo does deal more damage, but will he be able to provide as much as Jianxin does? So in my eyes, if a character is able to provide literally everything through her kit, making her a one-man army, it really makes her valuable. Alright, let's just go through her kit briefly. She has a 4-string basic attack with a bit of a pull on enemies with the 3rd attack and a push to finish the string, which is pretty nice. Her resonance skill is her chi counter, and this counter is one of the best aspects of her kit. When you hold her skill down, she enters her counter stance for 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds, if she is attacked by an enemy, she will take no damage and counters them. Now the value of this counter is extremely high and there's a few reasons for it. Firstly, for players that are not accustomed to the combat of WutheringWaves and haven't played many games that can punish you severely for not properly utilizing the mechanics. Some players may take a bit longer than others to master the timing of parrying and dodging, and Jianxin really just tunes down the difficulty of having to perfectly time them. Secondly, as I just mentioned, whilst Jianxin is in her counter stance, she takes absolutely no damage, which is amazing. This is something I would have loved for Tauchi to have since she also has a counter, but I assume they didn't want to provide invulnerability in Tauchi's counter stance to really make Jianxin shine, since she should as a 5-star character. Now progressing through the game and into endgame content, tactical hologram bosses is something you will come across, and these bosses hit like a truck. They have the potential to one-shot you if you aren't careful enough, and that would be a reason why Jianxin's counter is extremely valuable. If you are going up against a boss that you haven't yet mastered their attack patterns, Jianxin's counter lasting for 3 seconds will save you. Unfortunately, if you used Tauchi in her counter stance, she would die against a hologram boss, so it shows how amazing Jianxin's skill truly is. Jianxin's Residence Liberation is a massive crowd control that sucks enemies in and deals damage. Now, I understand the point of her ultimate not being useful against bosses since they won't be affected by the crowd control. However, not only will it still deal damage to them, so it's not completely useless, it's hard to ignore that there will be a ton of instances where there will be a group of enemies in the open world and in endgame mode such as Tower of Adversity and Elusive Realm. So crowd control is still very effective in a lot of situations, which will make clearing through enemies more efficient for your main DPS too. Similar to Tauchi, Yangyang is able to provide crowd control just like Jianxin, but Jianxin just does it better since her crowd control radius is much larger and longer lasting. So again, showing the value of a 5-star having the same ability as a 4-star. Jianxin's Forte circuit will be the main aspect of her kit and has got to be one of the best looking skills in the game, in my opinion at least. Once her Forte circuit meter has completely filled up through using basic attacks and her skill, you will want to hold down her heavy attack, which will then show off that amazing animation along with providing healing over time and a beefy shield for the team. During the cast animation, Jianxin's damage taken is reduced by 50% along with her anti-interruption being increased. So it allows her to pull the full cast off, which is vital since then you would gain a stronger shield. On top of that, Jianxin deals good damage to enemies around her with an explosion at the end of the cast dealt to enemies. So overall, Jianxin's Forte circuit provides a ton of value for the team. My Jianxin is on the weaker side, but of course with time I will be building her to deal a lot more damage, and I still find her to deal decent damage to overworld enemies. Jianxin's outro skill being the cherry on top for her kit, as it provides 38% resonance liberation damage to the character switching in. The two best damage dealers in the game being Jiyan and Calcharo wouldn't find much benefit from the boost in liberation damage, but there will be characters in the future that do, and there are characters like Danjin that will definitely utilize it. Now the misconception about Jianxin's Forte circuit taking too long to fill. Now as you can see, if you use her skill to counter and her basic attack string twice, that's the gauge completely filled. Once you counter the enemy too, you will have them in a spot to deal those basic attack strings quite comfortably. Comparing Jianxin's Forte circuit to Calcharo's, I think Calcharo could be more problematic sometimes, since you actually need to land the skill 3 times to fill his gauge. So if you miss, you'll need to wait 7 seconds in order to use his skill again. So I believe it is a misconception that Jianxin is a slow character, as she does charge her gauge quite fast, and the amount of things she can provide through the Forte circuit makes that small waiting time very worth it. Now the teams you would like to place Jianxin in would depend on how you would like to use her. As I said, Jianxin is a one-man army that can truly play any position. As a main DPS, the team that would allow her to deal the most damage would be with Mortifi as a sub DPS and Verina as the support. Jianxin and Mortifi actually have a really crazy combo together through using Mortifi's ultimate and Jianxin's ultimate and Forte circuit. Mortifi's ultimate would apply Burning Rhapsody to Jianxin's attacks, and through Burning Rhapsody, Jianxin's basic attacks will deal 1 fusion coordinated attack per hit and 2 for heavy attacks, along with Mortifi's outro skill providing 38% increased heavy attack damage. When you switch to Jianxin and pop her ultimate and then use her heavy attack with the Forte circuit filled, there will be a ton of DPS dealt to the enemy. Then you have Verina in the back that can also provide coordinated attacks through her ultimate and attack buffs for Jianxin. Both Verina and Jianxin will be able to heal, so overall it's quite a comfortable team to use and will really make Jianxin's DPS shine too. So this would definitely be the best team for a main DPS Jianxin. For a sub DPS Jianxin, you can pair her up with a ton of main DPS characters like Danjin, which I found to be a great pair up. Danjin being a glass cannon type of character will mean she is one shot most of the time. Literally an arrow would kill her. However, with Jianxin providing a shield lasting for 30 seconds, it will completely remove the risk factor from Danjin and makes her a much easier character to play. So for any players that would deter away from using Danjin since she is just too risky to play, can definitely use her without having to dodge everything with Jianxin as a sub DPS. Simply switch Jianxin in to provide a shield for Danjin and she is set to go on her rampage. Also, Jianxin provides increased resonance liberation damage by 38%, which will be greatly beneficial for Danjin since she does inflict a ton of damage with her ultimate. Danjin's ultimate, however, doesn't have the best range, so Jianxin's ultimate, being able to crowd control enemies in one spot, would be insanely valuable for Danjin as it allows her to cleave through all of the enemies at once. Otherwise, it is a hassle to line up the enemies together to deal damage with Danjin's ultimate to more than one enemy. More times, you would likely just use Danjin's ultimate on one enemy since they are so far apart, so Jianxin's crowd control will be really effective for Danjin. Then of course, like always, Verina will be the best support in the back for those attack buffs and extra heals. Jianxin's ultimate providing crowd control would even make it worth running her with Calcharo, which is personally the team I've been running. Calcharo deals a ton of single target damage, and so it would be extremely useful if Jianxin pops her ultimate to group enemies together, which will allow Calcharo to cleave through enemies much quicker. A very similar case to Danjin, where you would often attack enemies one at a time, but with Jianxin's ultimate, it just makes clearing through enemies a lot more efficient. So even though Jianxin's outro skill wouldn't be as effective for Calcharo than to someone like Danjin, the rest of the utility Jianxin provides still makes her a great asset for Calcharo. Those two teams I reckon are the best ones to use Jianxin as a sub DPS. And when more hard hitting single target damage dealers drop in the game, Jianxin would be a great sub DPS for them. Now, I stand by it, Jianxin can play any role, and that includes being the main support. For me at least, there isn't a lot of situations where I require a ton of healing. It's always just a small top up needed. Of course, in terms of healers, Verina and Baizhi would be the best picks. But Jianxin still provides a decent amount of healing through her Forte circuit every 6 seconds, lasting for 30 seconds. Also, the shield Jianxin provides would be the reason why her heals don't need to provide as much as Verina, since you aren't taking as much damage as you would with Jianxin. So it kinda balances out in a way. So with that, any team you would have Verina or Baizhi there as a support, you can have Jianxin there instead. Rather than the attack buffs both Verina and Baizhi provide, you would in exchange receive crowd control and increased resonance liberation damage. So there could be an argument for it's not that great having the attack buff for Calcharo when he can only attack one enemy at a time. But with Jianxin's ultimate grouping them, it will allow Calcharo to cleave through all of them at once. A team I think would stand out would be Danjin, Mortifi and Jianxin, since I believe Jianxin is truly amazing for Danjin. Mortifi would allow Danjin to deal Burning Rhapsody attacks along with increased heavy attack damage through his outro skill. Then Jianxin will be there for the minimal healing Danjin would need since she already heals herself and can crowd control for Danjin to cleave through all of the enemies at once. Now the builds for Jianxin would vary between a few. The best echo set would be the 5-piece Sierra Gale with the huge monkey being the main echo. Having him equipped will allow for Jianxin to deal more aero damage and heavy attack damage. So when you are casting a 40 circuit heavy attack, you will be dealing more damage to enemies around you, and overall, her aero damage is increased, which will be beneficial for Jianxin in any role within your team. Also, having the full Sierra Gale set increases aero damage by 30% upon using the intro skill, which again will be useful for Jianxin in any role. A less optimal but viable set would be 2-piece Sierra Gale and 2-piece Lingering Tunes, as Lingering Tunes can provide 10% attack, so it would be useful for Jianxin as a main DPS for sure. Jianxin, more as a support, can use 2-piece Moonlit Clouds along with Sierra Gale, as it will provide 10% increased energy regen to allow her to pop her abilities quicker. So the echo set would of course depend on how you intend to play Jianxin and what is available to you. For Jianxin's weapon, the standard banner 5-star weapon is going to be her best in slot, as it helps Jianxin thrive in every position in your team. Increased energy regen, increased basic attack damage, and increased resonant skill damage with an attack % main stat. So if you are looking for the best weapon, it will be this one for sure. The rest of her weapon options are near enough each other in terms of value and depends on how you play her. Hollow Mirage provides attack as the main stat whilst increasing her attack and defense up to 9%. So this would be a great option overall. Stonard is for a main DPS Jianxin, as it provides a crit rate main stat and increases Resident's liberation damage by 18%. Gornet's 21D is also a great overall option, as it provides energy regen as the main stat, along with increasing attack by 8%, counter attack damage by 50%, and can heal the user by 5%. So these weapons would all be great for Jianxin. Overall, Jianxin truly holds a ton of value and can be a very fun character to use, from making the game much easier and much more forgiving for players yet to learn to use the combat mechanics properly, or even when you just want to switch off and fight like in Genshin. Jianxin proves her worth even in endgame content, so you can really use this character at any point in the game. And with that, if you do manage to pull her through losing a 50-50 or maybe through your guaranteed 5-star, it's a massive dub, as she will bring a ton of value to your account. Last note, her design truly does stand out as one of the best for me. I fell in love with Jianxin's design the moment I saw her, and I'm happy to see that she's a great character with an amazing design. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you have, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content and drop a like. Also, leave a comment on what you think about Jianxin and if you are using her. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.